I'm Heidi, 24 years old, working full-time at a small fashion store in Eugene. My life isn't anything special. My income barely covers rent and morning coffee. And within my family, I'm always the outsider, never good enough to be celebrated, never important enough to be noticed. But I never imagined that this Christmas Eve, during what was supposed to be a warm family dinner, one simple question would ignite a revelation, exposing a bitter truth that had been hidden for an entire year. The atmosphere was tense inside the upscale restaurant in Eugene, where my family held our annual Christmas dinner. I sat across from my mother, father, brother, and uncle, forcing a smile as the clinking of cutlery and overlapping conversations filled the room. I was prepared for the usual: my brother's smug grin, my father's cold stares, and my mother's distracted small talk. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. In the middle of the conversation, Mom leaned toward me, her voice still warm but filled with innocent curiosity. "Heidi, did you like the Rolex watch I gave you last year?" The room suddenly went silent. The fork slipped from my hand and hit the plate with a sharp clang. What I stammered, my heart pounding. "Which watch?" Mom frowned, clearly confused. My brother's face turned ghostly pale, his eyes darting toward the floor. That look, guilt and panic, hit me like a punch to the chest. I had never seen that watch, never touched it. Never even heard about it until that very moment. Her question hung in the air, unraveling a secret I had never known. What had they done with it? And why was my brother trembling like someone caught red-handed? I glanced at Dad. His jaw clenched as he avoided my eyes. Uncle, usually silent, leaned back in his chair, watching the scene with a knowing look. Something was terribly wrong, deeply, fundamentally wrong. My family had always favored my brother, giving him everything while I fought for scraps. But this time was different. A Rolex wasn't just a gift, it was a fortune, a promise my mother believed she had fulfilled. My pulse raced as I realized someone had lied, and I was about to uncover a betrayal that could change everything. Before I continue my story, tell me in the comments, what time is it where you're watching this? And which city are you in? I truly want to connect with you and see how far this story has traveled. Growing up in Eugene, I watched Randall live extravagantly like money grew on trees. My brother Randall had a knack for turning heads with his flashy purchases. At 26, he'd stroll into boutiques dropping thousands on tailored jackets and limited edition sneakers, his grin wide as he showed off bags stamped with designer logos. I'd see him at upscale bars hosting parties where champagne flowed and strangers cheered his name. It wasn't just spending, it was a performance, and he loved the spotlight. My father always had Randall's back no matter what. Once Randall got hauled in by the cops for starting a brawl at a late-night party. He'd smashed a bottle, shouted at the bartender, and nearly got arrested. I overheard my father on the phone smoothing things over, calling it a misunderstanding. By morning, Randall was back home, smirking, no consequences. I stood there dumbfounded as my father brushed it off, saying, "Boys will be boys." It stung watching him defend Randall's chaos while I could barely get a nod for paying my own bills. My mother, a cosmetics sales manager, was rarely home. Her job sent her across the country pitching products to department stores, leaving my father in charge of the family finances. I'd catch her on rushed phone calls promising to be back soon, but weeks would pass. Her absence left a void, and Randall filled it with his reckless spending unchecked. Meanwhile, I worked long shifts at a fashion store, ringing up customers for dresses I couldn't afford. At 24, I paid my own rent, bought my own groceries, and patched together a life from minimum wage. I didn't ask for help, pride wouldn't let me, but it burned to see Randall's carefree swagger like he was entitled to it all. One evening, I scrolled through his social media, my jaw dropping at a photo of him flashing a gold watch, its face glinting under club lights. The caption read, "Living my best life." My stomach twisted. Where was he getting the money? My father's bank job didn't pay for that kind of luxury, and my mother's trips, though frequent, didn't scream wealth. The final straw came one humid afternoon. I just finished a grueling shift, feet aching when my father called me into the living room. Randall was sprawled on the couch scrolling his phone, a new leather jacket slung over the armrest. My father looked at me, his tone sharp. "Heidi, you need to work harder like Randall. He's making something of himself." My chest tightened, anger flaring. Randall. The guy who hadn't held a job in years. I wanted to scream, to demand why my efforts, my late nights, my scraped-together savings meant nothing. Instead, I swallowed the hurt, nodded, and walked away. That moment seared into me, a quiet wound that wouldn't heal. Randall's lifestyle wasn't just a mystery, it was a slap in the face. And I was starting to suspect it came at my expense. One late evening, Uncle Dean's voice came through the phone from Philadelphia. His calls were my lifeline, a rare moment when someone actually cared. Working in tech, he'd check in every few weeks, asking about my job at the fashion store, my dreams, even my favorite coffee order. His voice, warm and steady, felt like a hug I never got at home. Unlike my family, he listened, really listened, and it made me feel like I mattered. Uncle Dean had been sending me money for college since I graduated high school. He'd mail checks saying they were for tuition or books, but I never saw a dime. My father would intercept them, claiming the money went to family expenses. I'd nod, accepting it, though it gnawed at me. Why did everything I was promised vanish? Once I overheard my father on the phone laughing about a new TV purchase, and I wondered if Dean's money had paid for it. The thought twisted my stomach, but confronting him felt like lighting a match in a house full of gas. I stayed quiet to keep the peace. Every year, Uncle Dean sent birthday gifts that arrived like small miracles. One year, a sleek pair of headphones with a note. "For your music, kid." Another time, a book on coding, its pages crisp and full of promise. My mother, when she was home, would hand me small gifts, a scarf, a cheap bracelet, her smile distracted like she was checking a box. Randall, of course, got lavish parties, but Dean's gifts were different. They showed he knew me, saw me in a way my family never did. I started to suspect my father was keeping Dean's money for himself. The numbers didn't add up. His bank job wasn't that lucrative yet. Randall's designer clothes kept piling up. I wanted to ask Dean to spill everything, but fear stopped me. What if my father found out? What if it tore the family apart? So I buried the doubt, letting it fester, hoping I was wrong. During one call, Uncle Dean told me about his life in Philadelphia, leading projects, building apps, living in a city that buzzed with possibility. "Heidi," he said, his voice firm, "you've got a spark. Don't let anyone dim it. Come here someday and I'll show you what's possible." His words lit something in me, a dream I hadn't dared to chase. I clung to them, replaying them when Randall's arrogance or my father's coldness wore me down. Philadelphia felt like a far-off beacon, a place where I could be more than the overlooked daughter. After that call, I sat at my tiny apartment desk staring at my laptop. My fingers hovered over the keyboard and I typed an email to Uncle Dean. "Thank you for believing in me," I wrote, my throat tight. "Your gifts, your calls, they mean everything." I hit send, tears prickling my eyes. For the first time, I felt truly seen, like someone out there was rooting for me. Dean's reply came hours later. "Always, Heidi. You're stronger than you know." That email became my anchor, a reminder that family could mean more than the one I was born into. Last summer, my family started spending like they'd won the lottery. My father came home one sweltering afternoon, grinning ear to ear with a sleek box containing a high-end speaker system. He set it up in the living room, blasting music so loud the neighbors complained. At his bank job, he bragged to colleagues about the game-changer audio, inviting them over to marvel at its crystal-clear sound. I watched silent as he reveled in their praise, wondering how his modest salary could cover it. His pride felt like a performance, one I wasn't invited to join. Randall, meanwhile, jetted off to Miami for a week-long escape. His social media lit up with photos him lounging on a yacht, clinking glasses with strangers under neon lights, his grin smug as ever. One post showed him dancing on a deck captioned "Paradise Found." I scrolled through, my chest tightening. How could he afford private charters and waterfront clubs? His jobless lifestyle didn't add up, and the more I saw, the more my suspicions grew. Randall wasn't just living large, he was flaunting it like he wanted the world to bow. My mother, when she wasn't on a business trip, threw Randall a birthday bash that could have funded a small wedding. The backyard was transformed, caterers served gourmet appetizers, a live band played, and guests in designer outfits spilled across the lawn. I wasn't invited. I found out when I came home from a shift at the fashion store, exhausted only to see cars lining the street. My mother brushed it off, saying it was Randall's day. I nodded, swallowing the sting, but it felt like another door slammed in my face. The family's spending didn't stop there. They decided to renovate the house, ripping out perfectly good furniture for custom pieces that screamed luxury. Marble countertops, velvet sofas, a chandelier that cost more than my yearly rent. Every choice felt excessive. I was tasked with hauling old furniture to the garage, sweating through hours of labor, while Randall lounged by the pool sipping a drink. My father supervised barking orders as if my effort was just expected. Each box I carried fueled my resentment, a reminder of how little I mattered in their world. One evening, while sorting through the garage clutter, I found a crumpled receipt tucked inside a box. My hands shook as I unfolded it, a $12,000 bill for a dining table paid in cash. My mind raced. My father's job didn't pull in that kind of money, and my mother's cosmetics sales, while decent, couldn't cover this spree. I thought of Uncle Dean's checks, the ones meant for my college, the ones my father called family expenses. The receipt burned in my hand, a clue to a truth I wasn't ready to face. Was this where Dean's money went? I confronted my father that night, holding up the receipt. His face hardened, his voice clipped. "It's from savings," he snapped, snatching the paper from me. "Stop poking around in things you don't understand." His dismissal hit like a slap, but I saw the flicker of unease in his eyes. He was hiding something, and I wasn't buying his excuse. The receipt, the speakers, Randall's trip, the renovation, it all pointed to a lie, one that was starting to unravel. I walked away, my resolve hardening. Whatever they were hiding, I'd find out no matter the cost. That night at an upscale restaurant in Eugene, our dinner table glowed with candlelight. The clink of glasses and forced laughter filled the air, but tension simmered beneath the surface. My mother, fresh off a business trip, chatted about her latest sales pitch. My father nodded absently, his eyes on his steak. Randall slouched in his chair, scrolled his phone, smirking at some private joke. Uncle Dean, quiet as always, watched us all with a steady gaze. I picked at my food, bracing for the usual: Randall's arrogance, my father's indifference, my mother's obliviousness. Then everything shattered. My mother turned to me, her smile warm but unaware. "Heidi, did you like the Rolex watch I gave you last year?" My fork froze midair, my heart slamming against my ribs. "What?" I choked out. "Which watch?" Her face faltered, confusion knitting her brows. Randall's phone slipped from his hand, hitting the table with a thud. His face drained of color, eyes darting to my father, who stiffened, his knife scraping the plate. The air grew thick, every second stretching into eternity. Uncle Dean leaned forward, his voice calm but cutting. "Karen, she never got it. Norman and Randall sold it. $60,000 gone." My mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. I stared at Dean, my mind reeling. "A Rolex for me?" My father's jaw clenched, but before he could speak, Dean continued, his tone relentless. "That's not all. The $10,000 I sent for Heidi's college, Norman kept it. Used it for family expenses." The words hit like a punch, confirming every suspicion I'd buried. My father slammed his fist on the table, his voice low and defensive. "It was for the family. The house, the bills. Heidi doesn't need it." Randall chimed in, his voice shaky. Yeah, it's not a big deal. Just business. Business. My blood boiled. They'd sold a gift meant for me, pocketed money, meant for my future, and called it nothing. My mother's face crumpled, her eyes wide with shock. Norman, you knew Randall? You agreed to this? She whispered, her voice trembling. She turned to me, tears welling. Heidi, I had no idea. I pushed my chair back, my voice steady despite the storm inside. You sold my gift, you stole my money, and you lied to my face for years. My father's eyes narrowed, but I didn't stop. I trusted you, both of you, and you treated me like I was invisible. Randall stammered. Heidi, chill. It's not personal. Not personal. My hands shook as I glared at him, the brother who'd taken everything while I scraped by. My mother's voice broke through, sharp and final. Randall, you're out of my will. I won't stand for this. Randall's mouth fell open, his face ashen. My father started to protest, but she cut him off. Enough, Norman. You've done enough. Her words were a blade, and for the first time I saw her take a stand. But it wasn't enough to erase the betrayal burning in my chest. Uncle Dean reached for my hand, his voice soft but firm. Heidi, come to Philadelphia. Start fresh with me. You don't need this. His offer was a lifeline, a way out of the lies and neglect. I looked at my family, my mother's tear-streaked face, my father's clenched fists, Randall's panicked eyes, and felt nothing but disgust. I stood my chair, scraping the floor. I'm done, I said, my voice cold. Don't expect me back. I walked out, the restaurant's warmth fading behind me, my heart set on a future they couldn't touch. The next morning, I stood at Eugene Airport with a single suitcase. My hands trembled as I gripped the handle, the weight of last night's betrayal still raw. The plane ride to Philadelphia was a blur, my mind replaying my mother's shocked tears, Randall's pale face, my father's defensive outburst. I stared out the window, the clouds below a reminder of the distance I was putting between me and them. When the plane touched down, Uncle Dean was waiting at the gate, his warm smile a stark contrast to the coldness I'd left behind. He pulled me into a hug, saying, "You made the right choice, Heidi." For the first time in years, I believed it. Uncle Dean drove me through Philadelphia's bustling streets, pointing out landmarks with a pride that made the city feel alive. He'd arranged an internship at his tech company, a small startup building apps for local businesses. It's entry-level, he warned, but it's a start. I nodded, grateful for any chance to rebuild. My first day, I walked into a bright office, all glass and open desks, feeling like an imposter among coders and designers. But Dean introduced me to the team, his confidence in me a quiet anchor. That's when I met Cody, a soft-spoken colleague with kind eyes and a quick laugh. He noticed my quietness during lunch breaks, the way I'd stare at my coffee, lost in thought. One day, he slid into the seat across from me, offering a warm smile. "Rough week?" he asked. I shrugged, not ready to spill, but his easy questions about music, books, anything but home drew me out. Over weeks, Cody's small gestures, like sharing his playlist or joking about office coffee, chipped away at the ache of leaving my family. He didn't push, just listened, and that made it easier to breathe. Dean enrolled me in coding classes after work, insisting I had a knack for it. The first session was daunting. Lines of code swam on the screen, unfamiliar and intimidating. But the instructor praised my logic, and my colleagues cheered when I debugged my first program. For the first time, I felt respected, like my work mattered. Each line of code I wrote was a step away from the girl who'd been invisible at home, a step towards someone new. I'd stay late practicing, losing myself in the rhythm of problem-solving, feeling a spark I hadn't known I had. One evening, as I checked my email in the office's quiet corner, a message from my father popped up. "Heidi, I'm sorry," it began, followed by excuses about family needs and stress. His words felt hollow, a flimsy attempt to erase years of neglect. I read it once, my jaw tight, then deleted it without replying. His apology couldn't undo the Rolex he sold, the money he took, or the way he'd dismissed me. I closed my laptop, my resolve firm. I didn't owe him a response. Not now. Not ever. With Dean's help, I found a small apartment in a lively Philadelphia neighborhood, a studio with creaky floors and a view of a park. Signing the lease felt like a declaration, my first real claim to independence. I furnished it with thrift store finds, a wobbly table, a faded rug, each piece a symbol of my fresh start. Nights were quiet, sometimes heavy with memories of Eugene, but Cody's texts or a call from Dean reminded me I wasn't alone. I was building a life, one I chose, and that was enough to keep me moving forward. A year later, Randall sent me a long email from Eugene. I was in my Philadelphia apartment sipping coffee when his name popped up on my screen. His words were a jumble of complaints, a far cry from the smug brother who once flaunted designer clothes. My father had been fired from his bank job after an audit uncovered financial discrepancies, shady transactions tied to his name. The family's lavish lifestyle had crumbled, forcing them to sell the house to cover mounting debts. They'd moved to a cramped apartment, a bitter downgrade from their marble countertop days. Randall's fall was even starker. Cut from my mother's will, he'd taken a job as a warehouse worker hauling boxes for minimum wage. No more yacht parties, no more tailored jackets, just a worn-out hoodie and a life stripped of glamour. His email painted a grim picture, long shifts, aching feet, and coworkers who didn't care about his old swagger. I read it without pity, remembering the Rolex he'd sold, the money he'd helped squander. His downfall felt like justice, a mirror to the years I'd scraped by while he lived large. My mother had divorced my father, unable to stomach his lies. She'd tried reaching out to me, leaving voicemails about starting over and family healing. Her voice trembled, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. She hadn't known about the Rolex or the stolen college funds, but her absence during my childhood, her blind favoritism toward Randall, left scars too deep to mend. I deleted her messages, my heart heavy but resolute. Some bridges were better left burned. Randall's email took a desperate turn, his tone shifting to a plea. "Heidi, we're family," he wrote. "Can you send some cash just to get me through?" He had the nerve to mention sibling love, as if that erased his betrayal. I stared at the screen, anger flaring. How dare he ask for help after what he'd done? I typed a reply, my fingers steady. "You sold my Rolex, Randall. You and Dad took my college money. Don't talk to me about family." I hit send, my pulse racing, knowing those words severed any last tie. I called Uncle Dean that night, needing his steady voice. He listened as I vented my words, spilling over with frustration. "They made their choices," he said firmly. "Norman and Randall need to face the consequences. You don't owe them anything." His support grounded me, a reminder that I'd built a life free of their deceit. Dean's pride in my progress, my coding skills, my internship felt like the family I'd always craved. Their ruin wasn't my burden to carry. 2 years later, I stood on my balcony gazing at Philadelphia's skyline. The city's lights twinkled below, a far cry from the shadows of Eugene. At Uncle Dean's tech company, I'd climbed the ranks to project manager, leading a team of coders on apps that businesses loved. My days were filled with brainstorming sessions, deadlines, and the thrill of solving problems. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving, my confidence growing with every project I delivered. Cody and I had fallen in love, our bond deepening over late-night coding sessions and shared dreams. We married in a small ceremony surrounded by colleagues who'd become friends. Our apartment, a cozy space with bookshelves and plants, was our sanctuary. Cody's laughter filled the rooms, his support a constant reminder that I'd found a partner who saw me for who I was. We'd cook dinner together, dance to old records, and plan a future that felt boundless. Philadelphia gave me a new circle of friends, designers, programmers, artists, who welcomed me with open hearts. We'd meet for coffee, explore art galleries, or hike in nearby parks, their warmth erasing the loneliness of my past. I'd laugh until my sides ached, sharing stories of my coding triumphs or silly office moments. For the first time, I felt free, unburdened by the weight of my family's betrayal. Word trickled back about my old life in Eugene. My father, drowning in debt, had taken a low-paying clerk job, barely scraping by. Randall, after losing everything, had vanished, leaving only rumors of him drifting through odd jobs in another state. I felt a pang hearing their fates, but no regret. Their choices, selling my Rolex, stealing my college funds, had led them here. Justice, quiet and final, had run its course. I stood firm in my decision to leave my heart at peace. The pain of their betrayal had shaped me, but it didn't define me. I'd built a life on my terms, surrounded by people who valued me. Uncle Dean's belief, Cody's love, and my friends' laughter were my true family now. I'd learned that family isn't just blood, it's the people who lift you up, who see your worth when others turn away. To everyone reading this, thank you for following my journey. It wasn't easy, but it taught me to choose myself. If you've faced a toxic family or fought for your own justice, I'd love to hear your story. Share your thoughts below. What does family mean to you? How do you find strength to move on? Your voice matters, just like mine did when I walked away.